My name is Jim Ingalls. I'm the director of the Livonia Housing Commission, and I want to thank you for coming. Our partnership with our landlords is very, very important, and sometimes there's some miscommunications, but we want to make sure that you are fully aware of what we expect, but yet too, we want you to be aware of what your clients are responsible for. All of you have agreed to participate in the program, and we do appreciate that. Housing low-income people without you, this program would not be successful. The Housing Commission has a little over 900 vouchers that we assist families with. We have a waiting list that we opened several years ago. We have 19,000 applications in 1 week, so you can see the need that is out there. We conducted a lottery pursuant to our administrative plan, and we reduced that down to 2,000 applicants. Right now our waiting list is getting a little shorter. We are anticipating opening our waiting list in 2017. So we will do a public advertisement and a public announcement, and we'll send it to other housing commissions. We'll send it to the Department of Human Services. We'll do a lot of outreach so that everyone is aware. Our application process will be an online application process again in the future. No more 5,000, 10,000 people attacking a building and pushing and shoving. And when housing commissions open, I think more and more now are actually doing this online. Livonia is just one of many housing commissions. How many people do work with other housing commissions? Great. There's the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, which is the largest in the state. They have close to 15,000 vouchers. Probably the next biggest one around this area would be the Plymouth Housing Commission. The Westland Housing Commission has close to 1,000 vouchers. We have close to 1,000 vouchers. And so a lot of housing commissions operate this program. And one thing you need to know is that what translates at one housing commission doesn't always translate with another. So we have the flexibility under HUD guidelines to tailor our program specifically for our needs. So some of the inspection processes may be a little different. The payment standards that we provide to the clients is a little bit different. The briefing session is a little bit different. So each of us operates our program within the guidelines that HUD establishes, but we do tailor our program specifically for Livonia. So I've heard from landlords sometimes, well, Detroit doesn't do it this way, or Westland doesn't do it that way. We have the ability, as long as we're following the regulations, to tailor the program for our clients and for you. For the most part, we get great response and great cooperation from landlords. Most of you have really good quality units. You work well with your clients. You have your own lease agreement, and I would highly encourage you to strengthen that lease agreement that you have. Many times landlords will go to Quick Print and just get one of those standard leases. Those are not really good quality leases. You really need to have the assistance of a lawyer to put together a good quality lease, because this is a three-party arrangement. So when the client comes into us after coming off the waiting list, they go through about an hour and a half briefing, 2-hour briefing, and we have a video that we show them and we ask questions, and they have questions as well. And when we issue a voucher to them, it's good for a period of 60 days. They can get a 30-day extension. So when they come out into the community, some of them are kind of attuned to what's going on, but some of them are not. So for those of you that do participate in the voucher program as landlords, you kind of understand the process, and that's good. But a lot of times we will get clients that don't fully understand the program, and therefore they're looking to you for answers or for us, and we have 4 staff members here. Ms. Lang is the division director for the voucher program. We also have Jackie Smith. We also have Tina Reed and Tricia Liana. So we have a total of 4 staff persons with some clerical support from another individual as well. But under this 3-party arrangement, the Housing Commission is more like a banker. We're more like a financing entity, because we are not a party to your lease agreement. You are. You have that relationship with your client. Now, while we do require that the clients perform certain functions and adhere to the program under the voucher program, as long as the unit passes housing quality standards, the rent is reasonable compared to other unassisted units in your neighborhood that you have, then we will move forward and execute what's called a housing assistance payments contract with you. for the most part, you will not see us for another year. Now, you may, if there are housing quality problems where the client requests a special inspection, but all of the clients are required to go through an income recertification once every year. So if everything's going well between the voucher holder and the landlord, we're not involved. And we'll see you on an annual recertification basis, or maybe on a biannual recertification basis, because we have changed our housing quality inspection process, and I'm going to cover that in a few minutes. So if you have issues with your client, you need to work those out with them, whether it's housing quality or if there's other serious violations, they will have one of our staff members assigned to them, and you can kind of vet some of these problems with them as well. So I have given you two handouts that were updated and dated October 16th, and the first one is a single sheet of paper which talks about our inspection process. And one of the things that we are concerned about and we want to make sure that we cover has to do with furnace inspections. So for those of you that are on the program, and this is the one that's one-page sheet of paper, we do require all of our landlords once every 2 years to have a clean and safety check. This has been approved by HUD. It's an additional standard, but my board really believes that with carbon monoxide problems, and we don't want to affect the health of children or families, it's important to have a clean and safety check, especially for those of you that have older homes and have older furnaces. A clean and safety check, hopefully there's no cracked heat exchanger, but we just want to make sure that the furnaces are well taken care of. If you have an electric heat, we're not going to require anything from you because that's an electricity issue, not so much natural gas where we have carbon monoxide. If you are in an apartment community or you're a manager of an apartment community, we will seek from the owner of the apartment community an inspection from the state of Michigan, because most of these larger boilers that heat a large building will have a certificate from the state. So whatever you can do to provide that type of documentation to us, please keep a copy of this document so that you're fully aware of what we require when it comes to furnace inspections under the voucher program. Now, the other handout that I've given you that's front and back has to do with what we call our inspection process. And again, once a request for tenancy approval is submitted, and we call that the RFTA, it's important, landlords, to make sure that the RFTA, the request for tenancy approval, it's a goldenrod color. Make sure that that is completed and is accurate. The most important thing is the number of bedrooms, the rent that you want, what utilities you're going to pay for, what utilities the client's going to pay for, because that is what we use to call our inspector, Parkside Property Management. Many of you may know Michelle. She will come out and do the inspection, and so that request for tenancy approval document is very, very important. And sometimes we find out that she goes out, the request for tenancy approval says it's a 3-bedroom, but when she goes out, it's actually a 2-bedroom. Or the rent doesn't correspond, or there are some issues with the request for tenancy approval not matching the inspection form, which means we've got to start all over. So for those of you that have units, when Michelle comes out, typically when we get that request for tenancy approval, we will be out within typically a week to 2 weeks. And she will notify you by mail that the inspection is going to take place, and we require that at least you, the family member, or some other individual 18 years of age or older is available to let the inspector in to do the inspection. Now under A, we have what's now called marginal units. And unfortunately, some of our clients go into neighborhoods where some of the units and some of the homes are marginal. And what do I mean by marginal is that the utilities aren't on, the other family hasn't moved out, the appliances are not there, but they should be there because you're providing them, so we can't test those. But they will walk through, she will walk through, and sometimes we don't even get to go into the house because we've already got 15 violations on the exterior of the house. If we've got a lot of violations on the exterior of the property or the interior, once we get to a certain level where our inspector says it's marginal, we stop. So I'm going to cover in a second what are some of the most common housing quality standard problems that we experience with landlords. So that has to do with number A. I encourage you to go onto the HUD website, www.hud.gov, and click on the Housing Choice Voucher Program and click on a document called Good Place to Live. The Good Place to Live document gives you a guide to walk through what the inspectors are looking for and what we're looking for. So I gave you the HUD website right here under item number A, and look for that Good Place to Live booklet. It's also in the client's packet as well, so if they want to drop that off to you, that helps you guide you through what we're looking for. So after the initial unit fails, we typically give 20 days. 20 days for you to correct your violations and contact the Housing Commission and or the inspector for a re-inspection. Now, we find many times that not everything is completed. Parkside Property Management's inspection form is pretty detailed. It will list specifically what they're looking for. So when they come back out, they want to make sure, and we want to make sure for financial reasons as well and quality reasons, that the house or the apartment is completely repaired based on the problems that were identified. Now, this is not something that the Housing Commission of Livonia has adopted, but I think Westland has, and I believe Plymouth has. There is now, under HUD regulation, the Housing Commission may charge for that second inspection if we go out and it continues to fail. So what they're providing to housing agencies is the ability to have a monetary damage, because we've told you what needs to be corrected. 5 items need to be corrected. We go out and only 3 are done and the 2 haven't been addressed. Then those 2 housing commissions right now are charging for that second inspection. Livonia is not doing that at this point. We may be doing that at some point. We don't like to have repeated inspections because it slows down the lease-up time for you, because you can't put it under rent. You can't sign a contract with us because it doesn't follow housing quality standards. And one of the biggest issues that HUD has when they do reviews of us is that the housing assistance payments contract with you, the landlord, the date of that effective contract cannot precede passing housing quality standards. That's really, really important. Rent must be reasonable as well. So we're really looking at those 2 things really, really closely. So under my letter of October 10th, the front and back, I've given you on the back side of that, what are the most common deficiencies that we find with landlords? As I said, the utilities are not on. Windows may be boarded up. The furnace or the hot water tank is not operational. Smoke detectors that don't work. Loose toilets, mold in the bathroom, peeling paint, porches or steps are rickety or no handrail. Closet doors may be off the track. Electrical faceplates or wall outlets are missing or not there. These are things that we've talked with Michelle at Parkside Property Management. We've talked with other inspectors. They say, you know, for the most part, these are the common areas we find with landlords where we have a problem. And again, a little bit of due diligence on your part up front and correcting those specific items is going to make the inspection process go a lot easier and go a lot quicker. So please take a look at those to make sure. Now, under 24 Code of Federal Regulations 982-405, that's the housing quality standards provisions of the HUD regulation. So again, looking at the Good Place to Live document and reading that regulation will help you understand what those inspection processes are. Ungrounded 3-prong electrical outlets, windows that do not lock. There is some gray area by our inspector. A cracked window is not a fail item. A cracked window that presents a sharp edge or presents a jagged edge or maybe falling out is a quality inspection deficiency. So our inspector has a little bit of leeway to look at some of these items, but again, the health and safety of residents is why we do the housing quality inspection. So please take a look at these most common deficiencies and make sure that you are addressing those. Under number E has to do with the lease agreement. And as I said, all of you have to submit a copy of the executed lease agreement to us, and we will review it. And we are reviewing it not so much for what the rent is, but we are doing a little bit of comparison as to the rent and the utilities compared to the request for tenancy approval and the housing assistance payments contract that we have with you, because those all need to correlate. They all need to mesh into one another. But there are some provisions under state law. There's the Truth in Renting Act of the state of Michigan. There's the Michigan Tenant Landlord Law. There are some provisions in there that as landlords under the state of Michigan, you are prohibited from doing. For example, security deposit cannot exceed what? Month and a half, right. There is also no requirement that they purchase renter's insurance. If they want to not secure their own equipment or their own belongings, that's up to them. They do not have to have a telephone if they don't wish to have a telephone. They may have a cell phone. Some landlords require that. Some landlords require, and this is the one that's probably the most problematic, is that if there are repairs to be done during the term of the lease, you are responsible for the first $25. You are responsible for the first $50. That is not permissible. If it is a tenant damage, you should charge the tenant for that on their rent statement, saying the rent was $500, the housing commission is paying $250, you're paying $250. However, we pulled a toy out of the toilet. Toys don't belong in the toilet. So as a result of that, we're going to charge you $25 because we had to send a plumber out there to get the toy out of the toilet. So don't assume that you're just going to collect based on normal wear and tear. If it is a damage, you should charge for the damage. So please do not put in your lease agreement that the landlord or the tenant is responsible for the first X number of dollars of any particular repair. If it's ongoing and it's just routine, that's one thing. If it's damages where they've taken the battery out of the smoke detector because they needed it for one of the toys, that's a problem, right? You can charge for that. You have to send somebody out there to put it back in and get it operational. You can charge for those things, and I highly encourage you to do that. So those two documents will kind of give you an idea of our housing quality standards, of the lease agreement and the importance of the lease agreement that you have, making sure that the request for tenancy approval that you submit once you find your client and you've agreed to a rent and utilities, that and the lease and the contract that I have with you, the housing assistance payments contract, have the same information, the same rent and who is responsible for the particular utilities. Because we find sometimes that that doesn't always connect. Also, please, we do not allow side payments. I really wanted this amount of rent. However, under the voucher program, the client's contribution towards the rent is limited. We call it the 40% rule. So sometimes you may get a call from the Housing Commission staff saying, you know what, we're just slightly over her 40% or their 40%. They can pay no more than 40% of their monthly income for rent. That's the first 1 year restriction. So you may hear from the staff saying, can you lower the rent $10? Can you lower the rent $15 to get this unit to comply? It's up to you whether you wish to do it, but we would highly encourage you to do it. Now, after the first year, then you can recover again. Then there's no rent cap anymore. The rent must be reasonable, because we will do a rent reasonableness determination. It must pass housing quality standards, but after the first year, you have to make sure that that does not take place, okay? So that the rent that you charge does work for us, does work for them, works for you. If there's just too big of a gap and you really want it, a higher rent, but it exceeds their 40% and it's just not going to work, we will tell the client it's not going to work, issue them their voucher again, because their clock stops once they find you, then their clock will start again to find another unit. That's up to you if you wish to do that. But if once they move in after the first year, you say, geez, I really wanted $750, but the Housing Commission negotiated it down to $725. You know what? I'll let you use this garage, but you're going to pay me $25 extra. No, you can't do that. Side payments are not permissible under HUD regulation, any type of side payment. The rent is the rent until it is adjusted by the Housing Commission and approved by the Housing Commission after you submit it. You will know when your 1 year is coming up and when you're eligible to submit a rent increase. So we think that it's going to be a process where we've got to educate our clients a lot more as well. Now, one of the things too that we have adopted, which we think is good for you, is that once we do the initial inspection and we get the family under lease and we're rocking and rolling, and after the first year, we are now on what's called a biannual recertification process. Typically, you will not see us until once every 2 years. So if one of your clients just went under lease October 1st and you signed a housing assistance payments contract with us, you will not see a housing quality inspector, or you won't be notified of an HQS inspection for 2 years. Now, if the client has an issue and they've submitted, hopefully in writing to you, that they've got a problem with the toilet or a furnace or whatever, and you are not responsive, then we will conduct what's called a special inspection, and which means we have to send our inspector out to typically abate a particular problem with the house. So hopefully you are responsive to tenants' requests for repairs. To protect you, should be in writing, right? So ask the client, when they just call you and say, you know, I want to fix this, send me a text, send me a fax, send me a letter. I need to document my file. We expect you to take care of that expeditiously. Now, the other one that becomes problematic is emergency repairs. We have a list of what we consider to be emergencies. Emergencies under HUD regulation says they must be abated within 24 hours. No heat, no electricity, power failure, sewer backup, where it's causing a really serious problem for the health and safety of residents, we will put you on notice. We will send our inspector out. She will verify, yes, there is a health and safety violation. You have 24 hours to correct it. If not, we have the ability to what's called abate rent. And what that means is that from the date of noncompliance, after that 24 hours, there's a daily clock, right? So if you're charging $500, we divide that by 31 days in the month, and there's a daily fee for you not being in compliance with housing quality standards, especially as it relates to health and safety. Then at that point, when we will notify you that you're under abatement, you'll get a letter from us, and next housing assistance payment may not be your full amount. It will be prorated based on the number of days that the house is not in compliance. So the most important things are making sure your rent is reasonable, make sure that your house just meets HUD housing quality standards. Now there is a new protocol that's coming out probably in the next year, and it's called UPCSV. It's called the Uniform Physical Condition Standards / Voucher program. We are evolving away from housing quality standards, and we'll be going into a new inspection protocol. HUD says probably by 2018 or so. I mean, it's a ways away, but I just want you to be aware. And unfortunately, under housing quality standards, it's not like, well, 99% of the unit is good, but 1% is bad, therefore it should pass. Under HQS, housing quality standards, if one item fails, the entire house fails. Now, we will work with you if you have some ticky-tack, small inspection item that didn't pass on the re-inspection. If you send your maintenance person out there and they take care of it, and it's not health and safety related, and they fix that particular item, we're willing to take a fax or an email from you saying that that has been completed, and I hereby certify that this item's done. We're not going to send another inspector out. We're going to let it go. Now, we may call the client just to do a little confirmatory review periodically. Did the landlord come out for that particular problem? Yes, they did. Okay, fine. Case is closed. We're not going to charge you for that. We're just going to make sure that it is taken care of. Housing commissions are getting more and more reviews by HUD, and you may get some notices that they want to come out and do some special reviews. For those of you in the program, we just hired a contractor. We're required to do what's called housing quality standards confirmatory reviews or quality control reviews. So October 31st and November 1st of this year, 25 units out of our 900 are going to be selected, and we have a third-party contractor coming out to verify that our inspector, Parkside and Michelle, are doing a good job. So we're doing a quality control review. So you might get that kind of a special inspection. You didn't initiate it, the client didn't initiate it, but we need to do it to document our records that we have done a quality control review on our inspector to make sure that she is doing her job. Also on today's agenda, there are several items before I turn it over to Ms. Lang that I was going to cover with you. There are the first four, and again, that's the landlord relationship with the Housing Commission and understanding it's a three-party relationship. I'm the financing entity. I have to make sure the rent's reasonable, and the unit passes housing quality standards. Other than that, if your client has a problem with repairs, I don't own the unit, I don't manage the unit. I'm strictly providing subsidy on behalf of a low-income family. That's between you. Hence, the importance of the lease agreement. Please strengthen your lease. Make sure that it does protect you, but is also fair to the client. And we talked about the prohibited state law provisions, and we also talked about decoupling the unit inspection, where we're now going with a 2-year certification process on housing quality standards, unless we get a call from the client, then we may do a special inspection on your particular property. So I want to thank you for being here. This is the first of 3. We are going to be doing these more regularly. How many people are also with the Westland Housing Commission? So how many people are with Inkster? Oh, Plymouth? Mishta? Detroit? Wow, you guys are all over the place. You know, you work in the system good. So, no, I meant that positively. Again, our clients are many times entering the tenant landlord world for the first time. You are proficient, you know what you do, you know what we need. So we work very closely with our landlords, and again, if there's something we can do to help you resolve a problem, you have a housing specialist or Ms. Lang that can walk you through, or you can contact me as well. But we want to make sure that your properties are well maintained and that your clients that you have are good clients. Now, I will tell you that when they come off the waiting list, we do a criminal background check. We're required by federal law to do a criminal background check. Typically, if they're on the sex offender list, if they had drug-related criminal activity in the last 7 years, or they've ever been convicted of manufacturing methamphetamine, they will not get a voucher from us. Now, they show up to you and say, I'd like to rent your apartment or your house. Do I do a landlord background check to see if they've been a good landlord or a good client in the past with other landlords? I do not. So don't assume that they may not have in their past some problems with unpaid rent or unpaid utilities or damages, or they've moved out in the middle of the night. So you need to do your due diligence on doing a quality background check, tenant landlord background check on the clients that we issue vouchers to. Again, we do a criminal background check. We're saying that they're not involved in the last 7 years with drug-related criminal activity or on the sex offender list in those particular areas, because we're required to do that by federal law, but we're not saying that they're the greatest tenant in the world. Housekeeping standards are up to you. How you do your repairs is up to you. But as they say, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. Make sure you keep good detailed records if you are having issues. If you are having issues, and gets involved in the area of drug-related criminal activity after they've moved into your dwelling unit, call us. Call us. Because we will take action against those individuals that during the term of their voucher are violating the voucher regulations, or what we call them as family obligations. And on the back of the voucher form, that it's only a 2-page document. On the back side it says obligations of the family. So we cover that with those families, that this is their obligations, but there's also obligations of the landlord. So that voucher form is available on the HUD website. You can pull that form down and just make sure that you are adhering to those, because if we are going to cite either the family and or the landlord for non-compliance, it's going to be as a result of not fulfilling family obligations or landlord obligations. All right, so with that, I know Ms. Lang has quite a few things to cover with you. One of the ones that gets very confusing is we're coming up to it now is we will be issuing 1099s. And when we get kickbacks on 1099s, it's a problem where, how many people have management companies? Management companies, the owners, the mailing of the checks, where they're going, the bank accounts, start doing this. We got to make sure that those are all in compliance, because if we get a kickback from the IRS, we send a 1099 to the IRS saying this landlord got X number of dollars, but if we get a kickback, there could be other IRS issues with you. And she's going to walk through some of the making sure that they all coordinate with one another. Okay? All right, everybody's on electronic deposit. That's been good. We've only got, I think, a couple landlords that are not on electronic deposit. Most housing commissions are on electronic deposit. She's going to walk through that as well. So with that, I will turn it over to her. So give us a few minutes while I decouple and they hook her up. So if you have any questions, in the meantime, feel free to raise them.
Thank you. Yes, and I do want to reiterate, because I want it on camera. Please don't call me. I get between 60 and 80 phone calls a day from tenants, and I would prefer to take care of my landlords. Therefore, I spend my time emailing. I do spend a lot of time emailing. Mr. Ingalls, the first thing he spoke about was the fact that the waiting list is going to be open next year. I will be bringing in over 200 appointments in November and December. So my goal is to get approximately 80 new units in January and February. March 1st, if it passes inspection, I don't know if we will have the money at that time, but I know I'll have the money in January and February. So if you delay on inspections and not getting it to pass, there is a small chance that we won't bring them on in March. I'll bring them on in January, I'll bring them on in February, and then we'll probably back off. Again, I'll be issuing, I have over 200 appointments, and they come in and sit. We give them tables and chairs because they are here 2 to 3 hours for an 18-minute movie. I go thoroughly through the request for tenancy approval with them so they understand that, and then the other half is the rules of the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So he mentioned the waiting list, and the second thing he mentioned was that we're all different. And we do ask you many times, and I am a little unusual, and I do ride a unicycle. Awesome. And the reason I brought it, and I will show after we're done with this, I'll put pants on and I will go out in the parking lot. I tried it in the office, but I couldn't do it on carpeting. We're all different. Yes, we are all different. Please, when you send me MISHTA paperwork, I can't use it. I have to have the Housing Commission from Livonia. If you send your request for tenancy approval to Plymouth Housing Commission, they don't know who your person is, and I'm sitting here waiting for it. Okay? We invite you to come into our building. We invite you to meet us. Please learn who we are and our rules, and that's why those questions were specifically asked. You know, you do have to do things differently with other housing commissions, because on his sheet of paper at the top of his, it had the 5 commissioners and then his name, and those 5, 6 people run the Housing Commission. And again, we are all different, so you can't try to treat us all the same. I tell my tenants, and that's why we use the gold sheet, I call it the golden ticket. And you can't give me an email of the golden ticket. You can't fax me the golden ticket. It has to be the original gold sheet of paper. Again, when I sit down with them in this type of arena, I spend 30 minutes on how to fill out that sheet of paper. And I'm going to give you an example. If you've seen it, great. If you haven't, and I am not going to spend too much time on it, but the very first thing in bold letters, I used to type it in and it said Livonia, and now I ask the tenants to write it in so that they remember that they are here with Livonia. I've had people copy down the address of 123 Main Street, and then I just kind of freaked out. I thought, oh my gosh, I picked an address that really exists? No, they just copied my example. If there are things that you should know, if you have a pen, if you have a highlighter, the key things on this sheet are the utilities, which Mr. Ingalls explained. I have to know who is paying what utilities. You can't believe it, but item number 6, where it says proposed rent, many, many times is that blank. I put O, I made my O bigger and my T bigger so that you understand the difference between the owner and the tenant. You have to tell me if it's a gas stove or an electric stove. I mean, that's how detailed we get when we pull a utility sheet out. If it doesn't have air conditioning, tell me. No air conditioning in the unit. Yay, not applicable. I can understand those things. If it's, again, not in writing, I'm not allowed to guess. I have to follow the 40% cap rule, which he explained, and I'm going to go a little bit more into detail with that too. On the back side of this sheet, I have way too many people that think that they're an apartment complex and the contract is with them, the person, Bob, Sue, whoever. It is with an apartment complex or a management company. He said that, this is what starts that paperwork and this is what we're using, and if you don't fill out the very first part of it correctly, it just snowballs and you're wondering why you're not getting a payment. This is the reason. I can't have 3 different pieces of paper that don't match. A banking slip has to match the W-9, which has to match this. So if you give me 3 different names and 3 different people, then I can't guess. Okay? So does anybody have a question? I call this the golden ticket. I tell my tenants, do not hand you the golden ticket because you can mail it to Plymouth, and you have. You can hang on to it and slow them down. My strong suggestion to them is sit down for 15 or 20 minutes. You fill out the gold sheet and they bring it back to me. They buzz my name, I open up the door, I look at it to make sure it's correct, I do the math and within 5 to 7 minutes, and I can tell them what they qualified or they did not qualify. If they did not qualify, like he stated, I'm going to be on the phone to you. This morning's person didn't qualify by $11 before you got here. She wanted another moving packet because she didn't qualify. I said, it's not how it works. I got to give you some time to tell me, are you going to drop the rent $11 or not? In writing. That's why it is imperative that we email, okay? Faxing, bad. You think I got it. My beautiful printer over there doesn't show it. You email it, I would say 99.8% of the time, I will email you back, unless you send me a cute little smiley face, and I don't have to email you back, but I would say just about every email I get, I email back. If you want to go as far as putting your email address underneath for me to contact you, right on the gold sheet, that's fine too. But I'm hoping I can call you and then you email me back. I cannot accept this faxed. I cannot accept this emailed. Has to be the original gold sheet, yes.
Just out of curiosity, why does that be an original?
The reason it has to be the original is because I can't give the tenant 2 of them. They get 1. They hand 1 back. Yeah, let's see, it must have been Wednesday of last week, white out. On an email, it doesn't show that it's white out. On a fax, it doesn't show it's white out. But on the gold sheet, it shows whether it's white out. And then I protect you and I protect the tenant. If there's white out, whoever handed it to me, I'm calling the other party. I have landlords that show up at my door and say, here, take this gold ticket, please. Does she qualify? If she doesn't, I'll drop the rent right here and there. Okay, and that's the only time we will ever open the door to you is if you have a gold request for tenancy approval. Other than that, you have to have an appointment. I can't give out more than 1. Sorry, because I could give, if I gave somebody 3, they're gonna turn in 3, and then I've just spent money for 3 inspections. Yeah, not gonna happen. I'm gonna quickly go over an income worksheet. When they walk in the door and they've been called off the waiting list, this is the worksheet I sit down and I do with them. You can have 2. Thank you. Everybody knows the name of our program is Housing Choice Voucher. It is not Section 8. Section 8 is the legislative title, and it was done in 1974, and the name of the program is Housing Choice Voucher. Section 9, does everybody know what Section 9 is? Public housing. Do you ever hear people talking about Section 9? No. Rarely. If you're in the business, then we know that's Section 9, but nobody uses it. We call it public housing. So the proper name for me is Housing Choice Voucher. It's up on my wall over there. And you have to be learning the word choice in housing choice. Because if I give you a 2-bedroom voucher, you cannot tell the tenant they can't live in your 3-bedroom home. Does everybody understand that?
The tenants need to understand that a little bit better, though.
I really work at it. I tell them one-on-one that if you are given a 1-bedroom voucher, you can still live in a 2-bedroom home. And I stare them in the eye across my desk. And then 3 hours later, I get a phone call that my coworker takes down for me. She wants to know, can she live in a 2-bedroom? Oh my gosh, of course she can live in a 2-bedroom. I will not tell them how to live. You cannot tell them how to live, okay? If they have a 2-bedroom voucher, they can live in a 3-bedroom home. If they have a 3-bedroom voucher and they choose to live in a 1-bedroom home, they can live in a 1-bedroom home. We cannot tell them how to live.
Now, back up on that. Okay, so if they have a 3-bedroom unit, how can they with 6 people?
Because the federal government does these wonderful rules, and they count the living room as a sleeping area, so their 2 people can sleep there. If it had like a family room as opposed to a living room, they can put 2 people there, and then there's 2 people in the bedroom.
I'm just going back to the thing that was in the newspaper not too long ago on the apartment building.
Yes,
Not ours, but
I understand, but we just can't. It's usually people that have a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom voucher and they want to go to the next.
is
Right,
fine.
absolutely, because if there's a mom and a 16-year-old son and they don't want to live in the same bedroom, that's fine. Give them a 2-bedroom. If they really want to live in a 3, it is all math. And that's why I handed you the sheet, because it is all math. We take their income, we give them deductions, we divide by 12 months of the year, we multiply by 30%. I've gone to the second page, sorry. I know this by heart because I do these about, well, if I do 200 appointments, you can tell I'm doing this way too much. And then, so after the 30% number, there's beneath that a 40% number. So I tell them what the payment standard is for a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. I subtract their 30%, And when I do this with my clients, so 843 is the payment standard minus their 30% or their total tenant payment, and that the number equaled 448. So up in this upper right-hand corner it says 448, and then I add their 40%, and that's the maximum subsidy that they can spend, which is $975. And if my clients ever hand you this, it always has a smiley face next to it, because this is the money that they can spend. So they know how much they can spend. On the second sheet I hand them, I break it down and I say approximately this amount for utilities, therefore approximately this much for rent. So when they walk into your office or email you or whatever, they should have a good understanding of what they can spend. It wasn't always done that way, but again, I spend 15 minutes of doing their math, handing it to them, explaining it to them. So that's their smiley face number. Their star number is the housing voucher subsidy number. So they know what we're gonna pay and how much can they spend. Okay, and then they obviously sign this. And then at the bottom down here, once you turn in that gold request for tenancy approval to me, I take what the rent is, I add up their utilities, and their gross rent equaled $994. How much can they spend? $975. Therefore, it qualifies. If this number was their spending, whoa, whoa, whoa. Good, you were not falling asleep. They spent $994, but they can only spend $9, right. So then I have to call you and ask you to drop it $19. This is why I call you and ask you to drop it $19. And as Mr. Ingalls explained to you, it's that first year. The second year, you can raise the rent as long as I can prove to the federal government it is rent reasonable. Rent reasonable, you can go back up to that $800 in rent. But at this point, it had to be dropped to $781. Yes?
Tell us how you determine how a tenant would qualify for a 3-bedroom versus a 2-bedroom versus.
Yes. It's based on heartbeats. How do we come up with a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom? It's heartbeats. So one person gets a 1-bedroom. 2 people, they get a 1-bedroom. 2 heartbeats per room. 3 people get a 2-bedroom voucher. 4 people get a 2-bedroom voucher. 5 people get the 3-bedroom. Okay? So for every set of heartbeats, I don't care their age, I don't care their sex. Heartbeat. And that's how the voucher size is determined. My unicycle again. Every one of us housing commissions do it differently. MISTA does the heartbeat. Ann Arbor does the heartbeat. Ferndale does the heartbeat. I'm pretty sure Westland still does it based on sex. If there's a mom and a son, they give them a 2-bedroom. So that's how we did it for the first majority of the Housing Choice Voucher program. But it has been around for at least 10 years, the 2 heartbeat. It's just when we keep getting less money that was determined that we were going to change.
And does the family members, are they limited to a generic family or like a mother, father, and their children? Or is it acceptable to have grandmother, grandfather, and then
We don't tell anybody how to live. If they want to have a niece and a grandmother, and that's their family, that's their family. There's no determination of what a family is. There is somebody over 18, that's it.
No felons, right?
No felons, says Mr. Ingalls. Yes, we have to do the criminal check. And I personally do that for all of your clients. And I will tell you that almost a large number have issues with evictions. Then again, I'm not the landlord, so I don't care, but that's what you need to know, that a lot of people, and what I've tried to tell the tenants is, if they have had this problem, they need to say to you, I know I've had this problem in the past, but now that the federal government is helping pay my rent, I shouldn't have this issue. I shouldn't I shouldn't have this issue. Take a chance on me. But if they are having difficulties paying their portion, I will be the first person to say evict. We have,
If they're evicted, they lose the voucher?
if they are evicted, do they lose their voucher? Not always. The first thing that happens is if you go to court and you give me those documents that they owe you $1,700, we won't give them a new voucher to move. They have to get a letter from the landlord that they are in good standings. If you don't provide that letter that they're in good standings, 99% of the time we will not let them move forward. There is that tiny, tiny, tiny 1% that we do.
Can they go to another agency?
So if they owe you $1,700, I have this national database and I say Susie Smith owes Tom $1,700, and I have to check that before I give out vouchers. And so I can't give them a voucher because they owe Tom $1,700. So there is a check in place. And I will tell you, I have had landlords who have called me and thanked me because they got their $1,700 maybe a year later, but they couldn't go anywhere and they wanted more subsidy. And so landlords have been paid back, absolutely, because of that. Yes?
Should we send you documentation before we file eviction?
No, not before you file eviction, just that you're in the eviction process, and if there's, obviously I want the money sheet. Show me that judge has given you money damages, yep, and that's what I put in the computer, and that's what we're gonna hold, and that's why we're not gonna give them a voucher to move forward, yes.
I understand the utilities is a pretty standard calculation down there, right?
No. Well, it is a, okay, keep going with your question.
It's just based on the number of bedrooms.
No. They make our jobs kind of complex, yet very easy. So I have probably 6 utility sheets. This is a single family utility sheet. Whatever you tell me that the tenant is paying, I indicate it on the sheet, I add it up, and that's the number that goes on their rent plus the utilities.
Are those published by HUD? Do we have access?
Every housing commission publishes their own. So if you want a copy, send me an email. I will gladly send you 4 of the most common that we use. Yes?
I just had a question. I wasn't understanding the difference between a 30 and a 40%.
Okay, they have to pay 30% of their income. So that 1317 multiplied by 30% is 395. So they have to pay, that's that number, that TTP, total tenant payment. They have to pay 30% of their income.
Okay.
So I subtract that from what I'm going to pay, my payment standard, come up with what I will pay, and then I add their 40% of their. So the more money they have, the more they can spend. Yes, there's always pros and cons with everything. If you think you want the Housing Commission to pay a higher number, then they have to have a very little income. If they have a very little income, that means they're having a hard time paying their utilities and such. Is there a nice in-between number? Of course there is. But when the Housing Commission only pays $50, I have had landlords say, I don't want this tenant anymore. And it's very disappointing because we've just gone through the inspection process and everything else. And they know when they've walked out of my office how much I'm paying. Obviously, unless their income changes. Did you have another question? Okay, yes.
One of the difficulties that we've seen is that it's nice to have the voucher pay 100% of the rent.
Correct.
But the tenant doesn't have the money to pay the water.
That's correct.
The electric and the gas, and therefore you're constantly in a hassle about that.
That's correct.
So that's a big trade-off, and we are re-looking at that right now and moving, because the market is strong, moving away from accepting everyone, shall we say.
Yes.
And are becoming more reluctant to accept those that have 100% HQV. For that very reason, because the utility charts greatly underestimate the water cost.
Well, it's probably the largest item on the utility sheet is water.
At least in most of the cases that I've looked at recently,
For a 2-bedroom home, I charge $35 a month.
We have tenants that are 100, 150.
I agree. And then it averages out, but that's a month. Usually it's around 58 to 65 for like a 3-bedroom.
But my point is, they don't conserve water, and
I-
the water bill is the big problem.
It sure is.
We get stuck with it as owners of property managers. Can't pay the water bill.
Is there anybody from here from New Start Development? Because what they did, I think, was the best I've ever seen. And so I kept it. What they do is every month the landlord, pay the water bill, and then they send that on to the following month's rent. So if you've heard that before, yay. I don't know if we told you 5 years ago and you've learned that, but that is, in my opinion, the best way. Every single month that is addressed, and it's not to the point where it's a $700 or a $3,000 water bill.
That's exactly what we do. However, if the tenant can't pay it, they can't pay it. And that becomes a lease violation.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Which we are reluctant to advise our housing commissions of that lease violation. But if you don't, the 25 that they're short this month and the 25 next month, before long, you have some real money. And that's where the push comes to shove over the water issue for those that do not have spare cash.
I agree. And that's why when you find the Housing Commission paying all of that rent, you know that their income is extremely low. And so it's a trade-off. You're absolutely right. Yes.
Yeah, we have found out in several different courts that if you don't pay the water bill up front, like she's recommending, you can't evict for the water. The judges won't allow it. So for non-payment of the water bill, but if you pay it, and then they have to pay you back for your lease, now it's the judges consider it unpaid, the courts consider it unpaid rent. Because you paid them, and then you can evict them. And if you start the eviction process, you'd be surprised how many of them will come up with that $75 to $100.
I agree that
You know, but you can't, you've got to watch them, you can't let them go on it.
Right. The water bill is a huge thing. Let me go to Cindy over here.
Well, what he's talking about is the same thing when we accept a voucher that we're gonna pay all utilities. They base that utility allotment on 68, 70 degrees in the house. They go in their house and it's 90 degrees.
Yes.
And that is another issue we have. We don't wanna turn anybody away. We know there's a lot of single mothers out there that need housing with their children. But we get into what you're saying, where we've accepted a voucher where the landlord's gonna pay all utilities.
I would say out of the 1,000 we have, I only have maybe 7 to 10 out of the 1,000. It is, yeah, I don't recommend that. Exactly what you've all said. If they're not responsible for it, the heat goes up to 75 and the water gets left on quite often. I'm gonna go over to this lady over here first. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to say, with some housing commissions or some municipalities, like Detroit Housing Commission, they sign affidavits, so they're responsible. The tenants are responsible for that water bill. But I find in some of the suburban areas, you have to put down a large deposit. They don't do the affidavits, so it's like the landlord is still responsible for the water bill regardless.
Every city's different. You're absolutely right.
That's
Yep,
why we'd have the
yep.
water bill sent to you and you pay it and then send them a copy.
That's still like, I mean, you know.
That's the only way to do it. The only way to do it. It's basically there's a Michigan state law that all the cities are supposed to do that, and all the water affidavits. But
Oh,
they
you
don't.
said it
They all
is?
find, yeah, but they all find a way around it.
Yes,
Another question.
yes,
'cause
absolutely.
I can read between the lines, let's just say, about what you just said, and then use, not to cover utilities for the tenants. If that is such the case, then on your little sheet here, why can't we put more smiley faces that say, are you gonna get a house or an apartment? Probably the two top ones, and put down the amounts here, the 800 that you're talking about, because it's a waste of time for us when tenants, sometimes we just tell them to go away because they're so ignorant, let's just say, where they're calling and say, well, this is how much I got a voucher for, $943. No. We're asking 800. How much is your voucher gonna cover without utilities? And they just, I don't know. Well, then just go away. So we will do that, because if they're not gonna put the effort in, that tells us we got a lazy tenant, that they're not gonna put an effort in.
And I've done it already for them. I have. It's not on that sheet. I give them a second sheet that tells them what they still owe me as far as documents.
Okay.
So I decided to start to count up how many documents go into a file, and it's over 60. So it can be as easy as a signature on a piece of paper, but it can be a birth certificate or a social security card. So when they owe me documents back, I note that on a sheet of paper. I tell them when they have to come to the informational meeting. And then on the bottom left-hand side, I say, you can spend $948. Approximately for a 2-bedroom, you're gonna spend $275 in utilities. Therefore, your approximate rent is.
Or just, it's easy to figure out. If it's 900, the highest amount on the sheet, I always ask them that. What's the highest amount you see on your sheet? If it's 1,100, I'm looking at about 900 in rent.
Typically around 200, yeah, it's not that difficult,
Rocket science.
but
Right.
some people do have a hard time with
No,
it.
well, okay.
I know. When you are given the moving packet and it's addressed to you, the owner of the property, I really mind when tenants come back and hand me my letter that it's addressed to you, because on the top of the moving packet, it's addressed to you. They hand it back to me. Well, then I know you don't have my email address. Then I know you don't have the website to go check your payments. I don't want this letter back. It's to you. When you hand me back the tenancy addendum, I gave it to you. I don't know why you're handing it back to me. I include the pages 5 to 14 for the HAP contract. You hand it back to me. Oh, I give it to you. Don't give it back to me. I have plenty. Okay? So on this letter, it says these 7 or so things that you have to do to get the process started. I need proof of the deed. I need the EIN. Okay, these are the things I need. You can't finish this list when you turn in the gold sheet, because I don't really want one of your blank leases. It doesn't do me any good. I will wait a week after your lease is signed. I will wait 2 weeks after your lease is signed. You can't finish this list. You can't check this whole thing down and hand it back to me. I'm done. Well, if you want another copy of these, I have plenty to hand out. I made more than enough for everyone. I want to explain to you how the voucher clock works. The day they come in for the information and they watch the movie and they're handed their voucher, the clock starts then. They turn in a gold sheet. I stamp it in, clock stops. If it takes me a day to get a hold of you to drop the rent, they're not charged with that 2 months or 60 days that their voucher is valid. It goes in for inspection. There's no clock working. It fails inspection, no clock. It finally passes. And then maybe the tenant doesn't want to move in. It's happened before. Their clock starts again. My worst case scenario is Jacqueline. She was given a voucher in June 18th, 2015. June 18, 2015. She moved in February.
Oh,
Wow.
Kept delay in getting me income. I have to have current income. The unit passed inspection. She moved in. The next day, she hadn't signed the lease yet, and she couldn't live there for whatever reason. I can't ask. And we gave her a new moving packet, and it from June 18th, 2015 till February of 2016. So I always tell my clients, you do not want to be worse than Jacqueline, because then I will be using your name as my example. Okay? Tina, were you going to add something? Tina is the middle of the alphabet housing specialist. I've told you before, don't hang on to that gold sheet. Hand it back to them. They show up at my door. Efficient, effective. If you want to raise the rent, do you understand that typically, if they were at their 40% rent cap last year because you had to drop it, if you raise it, it's typically on them that they will be paying whatever increase that you have paid. Only about maybe 3% of the time will the Housing Commission pay more. If you want to raise the rent, we strongly encourage you wait till the annual recertification. If they've been in your unit for 5 years and now you just decided that you're going to raise the rent in December, but they're not, they're a June annual with us, wait till June. Okay?
If you're gonna go to buy in every.
That's only with the inspections. The buy inspection.
So you'll still recert every.
We recert every year still. I know, when he said that too, I thought, you got to make that clear.
Okay.
Yep.
You said you research on the lease expir, at the point of lease point of the annual lease expiration, or do you have a certain time of year you do your inspection? For research?
Are you, okay, they're two different animals. Inspections is over here, and that's done every other year.
Okay.
And the lease is every year. And we recertify tenants every year.
But you don't have to have a lease every year. They can.
Leases can be month to month. A majority of them are, after that first year, they are month to month. Yes.
What's the rental amount increase? Is there a cap? Is it $50?
There is no increased cap, but again, as I just stated, that the tenant is probably picking up all of that increase. It's not going to be the Housing Commission paying more. It is the tenant that's paying more.
Okay, the payment of damages, is that to be collected with the next month's rent? Or do you start to use up the security deposit money? Or should you include some verbiage in the lease that states how that's gonna be dealt with?
Absolutely. That's what Mr. Ingalls kept saying. The stronger your lease is, the more, and I would never use the security deposit for those damages. That's for when you move out.
Right.
And never accept the security deposit as the last month's rent. That's another horrible decision that you've made if you use that security deposit. That is money you should be handing back to them if there aren't any damages. Yes. I'm going to keep going so that we can get out of here in a timely manner. I want you to know that we are required to pull a report. It's called Enterprise Income Verification. That is our required report to pull. And that tells me that you're working at Tim Hortons or wherever you're working. We use that to verify income. Unemployment's on there, Social Security. So when they don't tell us about income, that is our way of finding income that hasn't been reported to us. They can either owe the federal government money back or they come off the program. Typically, we lose 12 to 15 clients a month due to some type of fraud, or they have chosen to come off the program themselves. The month of March, we lost over 20 people. July, we lost over 20 people. That's why I'm bringing people on, okay? Fraud is when Mr. Ingalls talked about that a few minutes, and I want you to know that it is both landlords and tenants tell on each other. So if you do it and the tenant isn't happy, they're going to write us a letter and tell us if you take the extra money, or just stay away from it. It's so much easier. Do the right thing. Be honest. As far as the security deposit, there is nothing wrong with you taking possibly 3 months to come up with that security deposit. If they owe you $800 and they can give you $400 on that first month, and then they give you a $200, and then they give you a $200, this is where you're not doing it with the people who have no source of income. These are people who have $20,000 of income, and it's not illegal. I ask you to be accommodating for someone to come up with $800. I don't even know if your own pocket, if you can just come up with $800. They're told from day one to start saving for that security deposit, but people who are in the income levels of $8,000, $10,000, coming up with $800 is a lot of money. If you can be accommodating, I do tell them to ask you, but there are some landlords, and that's fine, it's your property, you are the landlord. If you don't want to give them a month or two to come up with that money, that is your right, but our goal is to try to help people who have low income. I have a document up here for ownership changes. I know we do have several property management companies. If you do have an ownership change, you have to email me and let me know. I keep paying the old person. And why wouldn't I? Nobody has put it in writing to me. You should not use your tenants as your vehicle to talk to me. I get way too many letters saying, this isn't my landlord anymore. Or I get letters from the landlord saying, can you pay more for them because they just don't have enough money? No, have the correct person talk to us. I can't, when they tell me, oh, I have a change of address, I can't take that from a tenant who's written it on pencil and a piece of paper. I have to have it from you. Logic? I'm not going to change your banking because a tenant's told me that you have a banking change. Sorry. Yes.
I'm a realtor / property manager. So I get a lot of landlords that don't even want to deal with it. They want me to do everything. They want to come through our office, the whole shebang. How does that work? Is that something that's not supposed to be done?
I can pay whoever the owner tells me to pay. So in that management agreement, it says, pay Susie Smith on my behalf, and then I pay you.
Okay. So there's a form for that?
Nope, that's your management agreement. Yep. I read leases like almost every weekend. I have landlords who turn in 40-page leases. I have landlords who turn in 2-page leases. There's got to be a happy medium in there. The 40 pages kind of make me cringe. People have put my name in their lease. Jeanette Lang is going to pay $236. If I find a better job, I'm moving. My name should not be in your lease. Okay? Don't put that the Housing Commission pays $236. You can put in there that there is federal subsidy, that's fine. But if they have a change in their income, that's what Jackie, Tina, and Tricia do all day. They do changes in income. So that $236 now might be $524. Okay? Don't put that in your lease. Thank you. I handed this sheet to you so you know this. In font size 20, it says that you can check your payments at HMS FORWEB. I must type that 3 to 5 times a day because out of the 1,000 landlords, somebody's asking me, I didn't get paid. I'm going to tell them to go check themselves because at some point they're going to stop asking me, I didn't get paid. I write in there, if your money was taken away, I write in there why. You didn't turn in your furnace receipt. You didn't turn in your furnace receipt, I'm taking your money away. You didn't pass inspection, I'm taking your money away. I hate taking your money away. It is so time consuming. Then I got to remember to pay you. It would be so much easier if you just passed inspection or gave me the receipt that I need that you've done the furnace clean and safety check, and we're all set. But out of 1,000 people, we're going to have a lot that don't. On the receipt, it was attached to your email that you got for the invitation today. It says what is required on a receipt. It has to have the letterhead, the signature of the person that did it, preferably their name printed so that if we do have to go back, we can say, okay, this person's certified, their certification number, the date that it was done. I would love to see a dollar figure because then I know that it actually occurred. Somebody paid $65 or $85. The cheapest I've ever seen is $50. So if you can find that $50 guy, some of them are as high as, some of them are much higher. The worst thing that a landlord can do is ask a question, and I'm going to go right to you, sir. What's the worst question that a landlord can ask? How much is your voucher worth? That is the absolute worst thing you can say to your tenant. Why is that the worst question? This is the voucher, front and back. How much is that worth? 0. It's a piece of paper. It's the rules of the program. The rules of the program don't have a dollar figure to it. Okay? If you get somebody from Livonia, you can say, what is the star number? How much is Livonia paying? What is your smiley face number? What is the most you can spend? The voucher has 0 value. It's the rules between me and the tenant coming to you. That's it. Should you take their voucher? No, because then you just took the sheet of paper away that's my rules with them. So I've told the tenants, be prepared. There's landlords that want to take it, so you might want to make a copy of it. You can make as many copies as you want, absolutely. But there are landlords that take it away from them, and then they don't have the rules anymore. So please, make a copy, fine, no problem. I tell my tenants, make a copy, and then when they ask for it, you can just hand it to them, but you still got your original. If you want to look at another lease, on the city website, we do have a model lease that's available. If you emailed me because you couldn't figure out what the city's email address is, I will give it to you. Mr. Ingles touched on this, but I'm the one that physically reads the leases. So when you put on your lease that you pay the first $20 for a maintenance fee, I have to call you, email you, and say, I need this changed in your lease, because you can't make the tenant pay the first $20. Okay? That's a huge issue. He mentioned that. Start date. I'm going to tell you verbally or in writing from an email of the start date of the lease. Don't pick a different day. I need all these documents to match. Again, he stated that you can't require them to have renter's insurance. I will call you, I will ask you, I will give you words that you can use: urge, suggest, strongly recommend, but you cannot say required.
What is the documentation that precludes mandatory renter's insurance? Is that just a Livonia Housing Commission, or is that?
It's a federal.
Could you provide a copy of that information?
I will get that for you, yes.
100% of our tenants have renter's insurance.
You can strongly recommend, you can.
We're a little more than strongly recommend.
I have tenants that have $200 worth of stuff to their name. You can't require them to insure it. You can suggest. And then back to that lovely lease, when they're vague, you can't, when I read these and I say, oh, you're going to get charged if there's excess use of water. Well, what's the definition of excess use? If you were specific, if the bill came to $130, in the months that we're watering grass, okay, it's very specific. Then you can go back to the tenant and say you spent $150, therefore that $20 being charged to you. But when you use vague terminology, it will be a problem. And I don't have the time to send everybody an email saying, wow, that's vague. Advertise with me. You should have my email address. If you don't, it's on like 8 documents so far. If you have units available to you, email me. I have a lovely bulletin board that the tenants sit out in the lobby. They read the bulletin board. I've had tenants buzz me and say, can I just come in and read your bulletin board? Sure. So if you want to let me know you have units available, we'll start decorating that entire lobby with everybody's units that are available. Have you all really understood that if you wanted my time, you email me? Everybody understands that. You do not call me. Thank you. You can call my coworkers if it's an issue about the tenant. I take care of you. I take care of paying you. I take care of the documents. I bring on the people that come off the waiting list. When I get done with their file, Then I hand the file to my coworkers, and then they take care of the tenant. So most of the time, you're gonna deal with me. Oh my gosh, I hate to have to say this, but there is email etiquette. Don't tell me it's a furnace inspection under the subject line. I have 1,000 landlords sending me in furnace inspections. Tell me the tenant's name, tell me the address. Here's the lease. Yay! I have 1,000 leases coming in. Tell me the tenant's name, tell me the address. I have we have 53 Williams clients. We have 38 Smith clients. We have the same with the Johnsons, and you gotta give me the details, please. We do have duplicate names. We work very hard to keep the person who spells their name EE or IE. We try to really go with that, but if you put the address on it with the name, we know who they are. I had 2 Michelle Williams who are both self-employed as hairdressers, and we had to keep those lovely ladies separate. So it's just common names, yes. I told you once before, please don't send the tenant to communicate with me, and please, as a landlord, don't tell me that their income has gone down and that I need to recalculate. Everybody's got to do their own job. Oh my gosh. So we had how many people? Probably maybe another 15 people that said they're coming this morning. I'm thinking they went to our Purlingbrook address. Because if you Google Livonia Housing Commission, they're going to give you I see a couple of smiles. It's going to give you our Purling address. Mr. Ingalls has offices in all of our buildings. That's where his office is. So if you want to show up and talk to him, that's where you go. If you want to talk to somebody who's taking care of your payments, you want to talk to me. We've told you several times that our waiting list is closed. And last but not least, Mr. Ingalls writes a letter because we're taking this person's voucher away. So who should you contact since he's the person that wrote the letter? Yeah, it could be me. That's definitely true. But if Tina has sent you a letter, don't contact me. If the finance department is taking somebody's voucher away, you probably want to talk to me because you're not going to get into the finance people. So yes, you can always come to me because you're the landlords, and my job is to take care of the landlords. Okay? Pardon me? Say it again.
Tim thinks you're the only person.
Tim thinks I'm the only person here. Yes, there are 4 of us. We've divided them up between the alphabet. That's the only reason you get one person over another person.
Janet, I am a new housing landlord.
Okay?
So, one of my tenants moved in September 1st, so I was expecting, of course, payment from housing voucher programs on October 1st. It didn't come in on the 1st, so of course I emailed you. Is there a rule or
It's on my first letter that I wrote you that you shouldn't be handing back to me. And it says, the federal government typically gives us the money on the 1st, but as October 1st was a Saturday, we didn't get the money till October 3rd, correct? We have 4 to 7 business days to pay you and put it into your account. He said he was only wrong about 1%. Another thing he was wrong is we have no one on our program that gets a hard check. Every person is direct deposited. And it says if you accidentally gave this to the, thank you, you get it takes us 4 to 7 business days to pay 1,000 people. I'm sorry, sometimes we're great at it. Sometimes we're terrible at it because somebody's given us an ownership change and we're waiting for that last document and we hold up 1,000 people because of one sheet of paper that I have to prove I'm paying this person this number. Yes.
So back in May, we took over about 90 more properties.
Oh, ownership changes.
Ownership change.
Yes.
Same owner, just different management, just changed hands of management. So can we go after the tenant for their unpaid portion? Cause some tenants like, oh, $13,000 or $10,000 and like the previous management company wasn't evicting them.
You can go after tenant not paid portion,
Right.
if you can prove it, yes.
Oh, that's
As far as me,
Yeah.
if you haven't told me, even though you took these properties over in April and you haven't given me the documents till July, I can't go back and pay you for those months that
Right.
you didn't give me the documents.
Gotcha.
I have the money,
Right. Well, I'm not talking about your portion.
right,
I mean,
but the tenant, yep,
tenant portion.
yep.
Okay.
Yep, and when I abate, because you haven't given me that furnace receipt, the
Right.
tenant should still be paying their portion. They are not exempt from that, only the federal government.
Okay. Well, good.
Yes,
Yes.
one,
Go.
I'm
Go get 'em, Gina.
fairly new to
Where are you?
Okay.
vouchers as well. And I have a tenant that is getting married. How would that affect them having their voucher as far as us?
you can add people to your house, you can take people from your house. They just let us know in writing, and then they provide us the proper documents. Yep.
So what if they don't tell you they added them or don't even tell the landlord?
Well, yeah, it's definitely a lease violation if they don't let you know someone's been added or taken away. Obviously, you as my partner, you have to let me know that this person has been added. If they don't, everything on my program is money.
Well, that's violation
Yeah.
too, though, right? Because you're not paying to have someone else live in there.
Right, we're not
Besides-
paying, and if they do have an income, they should be paying 30% of that income.
What would you ask me, the landlord, for as proof that an additional person or additional persons have been added to the household?
How do I get proof that, yeah, good, yeah, that's what we do too. If you tell us in writing that there is this additional person, that's all you do. You tell me that this additional person has been in the unit. That's my job to prove, to get that proof. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the tenants, I mean, they have boyfriends, fiancés, they're not on the voucher. I mean,
Right.
for some landlords, they don't get that in depth, and if you have a relationship, to add them on. My question is, for the voucher, if someone gets married, do they get, is there, does HUD add the husband to the voucher as they do if, there's an additional baby born or her?
We only make those changes at the annual recertification. So the person can come in anytime during the lease. That's not an issue. But as far as our payment standard changing, that only happens at the annual recertification.
At the annual, and what's included in that annual? Is it an additional child, a spouse, a
Anybody.
mother, a so you can add it onto the voucher?
At any
for
time.
additional funds to be paid by MISTA or by HUD?
Yeah, don't say MISTA, because that's the state of Michigan. Yep, HUD,
Okay.
HUD, yes,
Okay, great, thank you.
yes.
Contract violations, just a general overview. How interested are you in knowing of, from us as landlords and management companies, known or strongly suspected lease violations, such as a drug user, such as an unauthorized person living in the unit?
That's what I do.
Such as
Yes.
on and on
Yes.
and on it
You
goes.
s-
How proactive, how interested are you in those violations?
We are interested in anything that's going to have an issue, like you say, that criminal end of it, or if it has anything to do with money. Money. If you added another person to that house, what is their income? I should know about that income.
Well, what if they add their another whole family
Well,
to the household?
what if? There's 1,000 what ifs. Yes, there are. Then we bring everybody in.
That's ultimately, well, from a landlord perspective, you would think you should be getting more, there's more people living in the house.
Well,
So,
the more money, I don't know, is it from me or from the tenant? That's what my job is to find out. So if you do, go ahead and watch this video. They're gonna videotape me riding my unicycle around the parking lot. So that will remind you that we are all different. That is the only reason I am doing this, because I couldn't think of anything that made me unique, except that, you know, you gotta remember that. You can't treat us all the same. We all have different rules, okay? Thank you very much for coming. And if you want to come back again tomorrow, you can learn something different because I'm sure we're going to tell you some things with questions that are answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, he wanted me to come back this way.